So you want to make high quality videos. Well, to do that, you actually need to not only be a faster video editor, you need to be a better video editor. So today we're going to talk about 8 tips that you can use to make high quality videos and become a better editor. Last time we talked about consistency, which is basically a quantity play. Today we're talking about quality. First things first, prioritize your audio. Audio is what is going to ultimately help decide whether you have a high quality experience or not. We can forgive less than perfect video. We will not forgive bad audio. There's no way. So how are you going to improve your audio? Well, for one thing, aside from using the right microphone, which is a play that costs a little bit of extra money, let's talk about what you can do as far as your audio editing. I would definitely recommend using things like denoise or de-reverb. These are often presets you can find in almost any modern video editing software, whether it's something for beginners or it's a little bit more advanced. There's usually something to help you clean up the audio. De-reverb is great if you have hardwood floors or tall ceilings, and denoise is good to help you with anything that might be going in the background, including the hum from a fan or an air conditioner. So these are pretty much your staples. There are, of course, other more advanced audio editing techniques. I could do a dedicated video on that for you if you want, but these are enough to get you by. Tip number 2. I always like to prioritize learning the shortcuts of a video editing software. It's going to make you a much more faster, effective, confident editor, and it's obviously going to make you a faster video editor. But I have a trick for this. Aside from just trying to memorize and use these shortcuts by practice, I actually cheat. I bought a sticker that I put on my laptop with all of the shortcuts for my video editing software, Adobe Premiere Pro. You can actually find this for Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro. I'll link to some in the description down below for you, but I buy these off of Amazon. I slap them on my laptops. I even have a dedicated mouse pad that has some shortcuts on it as well for some other programs. So this is something that I think will help you in terms of speeding that up because you'll have it right in front of you, and you can use this until you're used to all the shortcuts for your video editing app. Obviously, the sticker trick is going to work if you're using Final Cut Pro, Adobe Premiere Pro, I think even DaVinci Resolve. There may be sticker packs out there for others. There may even be keyboard shortcut stickers for some of these other video editors, but I think it's usually the Pro software that you can do this with. Tip number 3, use B-roll footage to break up long stretches of video. Talking head videos like mine, they can get a little static, even though I do my best to carry the performance on camera, bring the right energy, and keep you informed and maybe just slightly entertained. I try to apply the 80-20 rule, 80% education, maybe 20% of my personality and a little bit of entertainment. But the point is, the B-roll is going to help you show instead of just tell. And you can shoot this yourself, which is going to take a little bit of extra work to make that custom B-roll footage work out. But I like to, once again, cheat and use story blocks for a lot of my B-roll footage. And it's been working out pretty well so far. I've gotten good feedback from all of you, and it's very convenient. So that will be linked in the description down below for you. Tip number 4, prioritize color correction. When it comes to color correction, I always focus on the accuracy of skin tones, but some of you want to be fancy. So there are presets and LUTs and things out there that can give you a cinematic look that has your footage being a little bit more crispy. I like to do a lot of this stuff in camera as far as lightings, good autofocus, sharp lenses and glass, but I throw money at this problem because that really just helps, to be frank. But when you can't just throw money at the problem in terms of your hardware, you can go ahead and you can use your software to your advantage, at least just a little bit. So what I do in this case is I go ahead and I manually color correct and color grade, but you can use presets if you want that come in your video editing app of choice, or you can buy LUTs packs from different places. Peter McKinnon and several other great YouTube filmmakers sell their own custom LUTs. I've actually bought several of them, and while I find them to be nice, and I just found that for me, they didn't always work out. I had to kind of make my own based on my lighting, my settings, and my skin complexion, but it can also be just very educational to let you see what you do and don't like. So I always recommend trying to get a handle on color correction and color grading. If you shoot in the same place all of the time, The good news is once you lock this in, you can just set it and forget it. Make a preset of your own, make a LUT of your own, and just always apply it if you have the same setup. If you shoot in 3 or 4 different rooms or locations, go ahead and try to dial in the settings for each of those and make them a preset so you always have them. This will not only make you a faster, more efficient editor, it will mean that you're taking that little extra attention to detail to make your footage look amazing. Just a little bit of attention to detail goes a long way. Tip number 5. Good sound design is important and it can make your content a little bit more distinct, help it stand out if it has its own unique sound. And this is more than just choosing background music. Obviously, I use Epidemic Sound for that, who sponsoring this video, and I also use them for my sound effects. But there are a couple of things that I do on my own. I kind of do have a few sound effects that I made myself using just my own mouth. So I have my own plopping sound. I have that. I literally just recorded that for myself. And so I have my own popping sound for things coming up on the screen sometimes, but other times I'll just use something that's in my sound effects folder and it's just fine. But having your own sound design and the way that you do things, having unique sounds, this can help you in terms of making your content a little bit more memorable. Also, when you're throwing stuff on the screen, if I talk about money, just having a dollar sign, a cash register kind of go off, that helps a lot with just, re-emphasizing a point or calling attention to it or making something stand out. So don't neglect good sound design, also choosing good background music, and also mixing your music properly so it doesn't overwhelm your voice and your main audio. That's something that's super important that people take for granted. You won't always get it right. Even I don't always get it right, but it's good to keep trying and refining it over time. Which also, speaking of time, it's time to plug today's sponsor, Epidemic Sound. I've made over 1,500 videos on my YouTube channel and many other videos besides. And for most of them, I've actually enjoyed using Epidemic Sound for a very long time to help me with good sound design, good background music, and it's convenient because it's also copyright free. And this works not only for content creators on the internet, it helps if you're doing a podcast, but also if you have freelance clients that you're editing for. And with an absurdly large library of music and sound effects, you do have the opportunity to create your own unique sound. Check out Epidemic Sound, link is in the description down below, get a free trial, and let them know Roberto sent you. Tip number 6. When you have long stretches of video, especially talking head videos like these, sometimes there's just not a set of good B-roll that's going to be the proper pattern interrupt to keep watch time and retention. And that's where motion graphics come in. You can obviously manually make your own animated text. You could work in Adobe After Effects if you want to, but I, again, have a cheat code. In Adobe Premiere Pro, I use the Essential Graphics panel to go ahead and use these MOGART files, which basically Motion Graphic Art files, MOGART files, that I can use without having to go into Adobe After Effects, which is very complicated software to learn, but weirdly, I'm better at the VFX and rotoscoping and doing things like that than I am at making like simple animations in it. Go figure. I can do the hard things and yet the simple things are too much for me. But with that in mind, I just use the Essential Graphics panel. I use some of the templates that already exist. And when something isn't working out, I go to Adobe Stock or Envato Elements and I find what will work for me. This is also how I've made some of my digital charts and graphs and those effects. It was all done with these MOGART files edited in Adobe Premiere Pro with no extra After Effects skill required. Obviously, not all of you will edit in Adobe Premiere Pro. I have a hunch that most of you do, at least if you're watching my content, but there are other programs out there that have their own variations of these type of files and animated motion graphics, and so you can play with those to your heart's content. The one that I think besides Adobe probably has the best options for this is probably Final Cut Pro. And like I said, there are plenty of options if you go to either Adobe Stock or Envato Elements to find things that will fit your content. Tip number 7, transitions. Transitions are something that are used and abused way too much by social media content creators to tweak their editing. I think that you can just stick to jump cuts for the most part. I mean, Casey Neistat doesn't use wild transitions in his videos. He either stands with like standard J cuts and L cuts, or he does something like a whip pan with the camera, and that's it. You don't have to be too fancy with this, but subtlety or something that makes sense can be good, and when combined with sound design, transitions can actually be super effective. You just have to get it right. And finally, tip number 8, export settings. Export settings are where some of the quality conversation really does need to happen. You're shooting on great cameras, you got great lighting, but you decide that you're gonna export it to make the smallest file possible. That's a mistake. Big files means that you have more of the data, which means you have more of the pixels, more of the image, more of the data to go ahead and send your properly color graded, edited, wonderful masterpiece to the internet in all of its glory. And you're undermining that on top of the compression that's already gonna experience in YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or God forbid, how bad Twitter is with video compression. You're already going to have some loss of quality here. So making the smallest file possible isn't really doing your content any favors. The opposite is what really needs to happen here. You need to learn the proper settings for exporting your content in its best overall quality. And what you really need to think about is things like codecs. I mostly am exporting now in the H.265 codec one. It's more efficient, quality is really good, and the file size, it's like a little bit smaller than it would be if I used H.264, which is less efficient these days. In my case, obviously, I shoot and produce and edit everything in stunning 4K video, and because I use Sony and I use the good cameras, I'm shooting in a color profile that is basically 422 10-bit color, which is just a fancy way of saying that I'm capturing everything. So when it comes down to it, don't undermine high quality footage with overly compressed export files. I will do a dedicated video on the best export settings for Adobe Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro at a later time. But for now, just start to really think about the fact that you are shooting high quality video and then you're crunching it down to the smallest file to save space, when all you need to do is just let it be uploaded, because it's gonna get compressed anyway. So let it come down from a higher standard of quality. And there you go. 8 tips that are going to make you a better video editor. You're finally going to get some higher quality content if you actually take this advice. If you enjoyed this video, you probably also should watch my video on consistency. Now that you know about quality, you also need to up that quantity, and consistency is going to help. Also, watch my other videos about video editing. They will help you become faster and better. As always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget, go out there and create something awesome today. Take care.